Mike in the morning on ESPN Radio, back and better than ever with Jalen Rose filling in for Golick today and sitting here watching on ESPN2 as they're showing all these highlights of your career. And I must say, we've been doing the show 9.5 years. We've been on television for about 5 years. We've been in HD for, 2 years or so. And we've never shown all these highlights of my co-host, Mike Golick. And I finally figured out why. We don't really have any. Watching your highlights, they're pretty outstanding. And I'll tell you what else. You haven't aged a minute. You look exactly the same as you did when you were in the, was it 89, the Fab Five?
91, 92, 92, 93 seasons. I graduated from high school in 1991, but don't tell anybody.
Okay, 89 was the championship team. I'm sorry, 89 was the year Michigan won the championship with Glenn Rice and those guys. Right. So, okay, 92. So 17 years ago?
Yes.
You looked the same. I mean, you look identical to them.
I appreciate that. Back then, I used to wear a short haircut. Now I'm trying to...
You would describe this as a long haircut?
Absolutely.
What do you have now? It's over 1 millimeter now?
This is called a Caesar.
Yeah.
This is called a Caesar.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very short haircut you still have.
I want to wear it like this for a while, and I didn't have the mustache or the goatee then. I was clean shaven.
And yet you still look very similar to me. All right, we'll get back to the basketball in a second. I did just want to bounce off you a very strange stat because everyone knows that Jalen is from Detroit, and he loves all the Detroit teams, including the Tigers. So I went over and looked over the notes from the Tigers game yesterday. Justin Verlander had 13 strikeouts. He has 35, by the way, over his last 3 starts. That's not the interesting stat. Courtesy of the Elias Sports Bureau. Pitchers with at least 12 strikeouts in a game this year. Now you think 12 strikeouts, dominating performance. Those pitchers are 1-5 with 3 no decisions. Tim Lincecum is the only starting pitcher in baseball this year to strike out as many as 12 in a game and win. Last year, pitchers with a dozen or more strikeouts were 11-2. So how do you figure that? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I wish I'd seen that before we had Peter on. I bounced that off, and what a very strange little note that is.
And the equivalent of that to me, Greeny, would probably be an NBA player that scores over 40, 45 points. It's such greatness sometimes that the other guys actually are standing around watching. So finally you kick it out to a guy to make a big shot, and he misses it. That's probably similar to a pitcher like Verlander striking out so many batters.
See, I disagree, and here's why. I think it's an interesting analogy, but you're dead right on that. I used to say, when those Jordan teams that you went up against, I always used to say, here was my strategy. You tell me if this made any sense or not. I always used to say for the first half, when I was playing those teams, I would have single covered Michael Jordan and let him score 36 points in the first half. And if you can just stay close to them, in the second half, he will have the mentality of, I'm not passing the ball to anybody. I'm going to score all night long. And everyone else on that team would just stand around and watch. Tony Kukoc in particular would just forget the game was even going on if he didn't get involved early. And then all of a sudden now, second half, especially late in the game, you double Michael, get it out of his hands, and everybody else is sort of moving in slow motion, and you beat them. Now, you tell me if that makes sense.
One thing people always forget when they talk about the Jordan-led Bulls, Scottie Pippen is one of the top 50 players of NBA history. He was a point forward that could guard 4 positions.
Right.
He was a tremendous superstar athlete. So you could focus all of that attention on Michael Jordan, but he would beat you as well. A tremendous player on both ends of the court.
He was. Look, Scottie was a great player, but late in the game, you put the ball in Scottie's hands and tell him, go create your own shot to win a game. He's not going to do it. In my opinion, he was not going to do it. You kick it out to him and he gets an open shot in rhythm, maybe. But you give him the ball top of the circle and say, here, Michael's doubled. Here, Scottie, go find it. He's not going to do it. Kukoc, I think, would have a better chance of doing that in those days than he did. And you have Steve Kerr spotting up on one side and whatever else it is. The point of the story is, in baseball, if a starting pitcher is dominating the opposition, that should be enough.
It should be energy.
That's like saying, you know, your goalie stood on his head, but you still lost. You'd have to lose 1-0 for that to happen. So anyway, I found it a very unusual statistic, one way or another, coming out of the baseball with your guy, Justin Verlander, yesterday. Quickly on the hoops, and then we'll get a little more into it here.